This podcast is part of the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Podcast Network. Go to MichiganSportsAndEntertainment.com for more great podcasts.
So what you gonna do when Hulk Hogan runs wild on you? To be the man, you gotta beat the man. Best there is, the best there was, or the best there ever will be. The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, the Showstopper. World Order. And that's the bottom line. For Stone Cold said so. And you know what The Rock is cooking. I am the game. You will rest in peace. The champ is here.
I have proved to everybody in the world that I am the best on this microphone, in that ring, even in commentary. Nobody can touch me.
Brock Lesnar. WWE is wonderful, but they do not own pro wrestling.
Welcome everybody to the Michigan Marks Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, David Rosenberg, a writer for the wrestling section of MichiganSportsAndEntertainment.com. I'm here with Dan. Dan, how's it going?
I'm doing well. Glad to be here. It's something we've talked about doing for a long time, so excited to get started.
I think this is actually the first time I've heard your voice. We've done a couple of conference calls in the past, but because we mostly write articles about wrestling, I don't think I've ever heard your voice. So it's good to kind of actually hear you and see, what you think about wrestling.
Yeah, well, you haven't seen my face either, but they're in pictures. You just know I'm really freaking tall.
Yeah, I consider myself big, and I am 6'1", 250 pounds, and I am almost positive that Dan towers over me. So, before we get started, here's a little bit about the podcast. Dan and I are going to basically try and do 2 shows a week. We're going to try and get the WWE stuff into one podcast, Raw reviews, SmackDown reviews. If there's a pay-per-view that week, that might bleed over into the second episode. But for the most part, Raw, SmackDown, NXT are going to be the focus. If we can get to 205 Live, that's a lot of wrestling to watch, but hopefully we can talk about it on that first show. And then the second show is going to be kind of a weekly wrap-up of news, notes, things going on. AEW is starting All Elite Wrestling with Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega as executive, executive producers or executive vice presidents?
Executive vice presidents.
Executive vice presidents. Whatever that title may mean, I think it just means that they go and look for other talent. But we'll be talking about them a lot because as wrestling stands right now, it's kind of dividing into 2 different segments. You've got your WWE hardcores that aren't going to leave. That's that, 2.5 million that are clinging to watching Raw and Smackdown every week as numbers dwindle and they approach that Fox deal. And then you have your New Japan, AEW, ROH, indie hardcore fans that like a kind of a different style, not that sports entertainment style of wrestling, more of a technical style, one with actual good storytelling, I guess you could say, if we're going to admit that WWE is not the best.
More on the WWE side of things. Between the two of us, I think you probably lean.
I do. I'll get it out of the way right now. My favorite wrestler is Roman Reigns. I'm sorry, Dan. You're gonna have to live with it. I like him because of how much shit he takes from people like you, Dan. You hate him constantly, and now he's got cancer. So now you have to love him. That's just how it works. I read a tweet that said, it's crazy how 3 years changes things. They used to hate Roman Reigns, and now they love him. People pretend to love him. They don't actually love him. I don't think they actually respect what he's doing. And I bet there's some bit of resentment now that he's doing this acting. Did you hear about him being in the new Fast and Furious Cows and Hobbin?
I did. That came from The Rock, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they're related. I think they're cousins, not like first cousins, but second cousins, I believe. But yeah, so obviously while he's recovering, I mean, that's a good way to make money. I'm sure whatever bills he has to pay is no joke. So all jokes aside, we do wish the best of Roman Reigns, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to be on his side. And
you can't say character in the ring. That's a person.
Yeah, I mean, great guy. I mean, I understand if you don't like what WWE's done with him, but I'm always going to side WWE. And Dan, you kind of side. Well, you can tell me about your wrestling history because you've been watching a lot longer than me, and you kind of refound wrestling, right?
Yeah. So for me, I got into wrestling around age 6 or 7. My brother actually got me into it. He would rent all kinds of videos from the video stores. We had a store right down the block from us. We used to go get videos from, and I got into wrestling at that point. And I was a huge Bret Hart fan back then, and I followed them and then I got into the Attitude Era, and I was obsessed at that point. I was tape trading. I was doing everything I could to watch as much wrestling as I possibly could because it was incredible. It was incredible at that point with the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars with WCW and NWO and all that stuff. And I was a huge fan. And then built up to about 2001 when ECW died, WCW died, and then Stone Cold turned heel and joined Vince McMahon, which was kind of like a jumping the shark moment, for WWE and I think wrestling in general. And I was one of those fans that completely fell out of it. I completely stopped watching around the end of 2001, and I didn't watch for another 13 years.
So you missed the entire invasion angle, and
well, I saw the invasion, and that was what kind of ended it. So
the invasion angle turned you off, and then you missed Ruthless Aggression?
Yeah.
We had an interesting debate in one of the group chats I'm in. We asked everyone to present their hottest take, and someone said that Ruthless Aggression was a lot better than Attitude Era.
I mean, there might have been some better matches here and there, but I can't imagine that there was anything better than Stone Cold versus Vince McMahon.
I think like the two defining people of those kind of times, like you got Rock and Stone Cold, and then Ruthless Aggression you have Cena, right? So those are different styles.
I mean, in the Attitude, Stone Cold and The Rock, which are two of the biggest stars ever in the history of the industry, and they were both in their prime at exactly the same time. And then you had Mick Foley at the prime of his career at that point. Triple H was getting into his prime. You had The Undertaker. Vince McMahon was in the prime of his character, his heel character. It was all coming together at the same time in the Monday Night Wars, where they had to put on the best shows they possibly could to compete with WCW and try to beat them out, because WWF was at a point where they were getting killed by WCW. What does Eric Bischoff call the show? Was it 83 weeks?
Yeah.
Where WCW was beating WWF.
Yeah, if you look at the Monday Night Wars chart, I think they have one on Wikipedia, but it shows which WWF or WCW who won, because I was researching it, and it's shocking how WCW slaughtered WWF for the longest time, and then you're like, something happened, and then I think it was that the episode where they said oh, Mankind's going to win the championship, and then ratings never went back to WCW's way.
That was the night everything turned, because that was the same night that they did the finger poke of doom.
Yes. Oh God, that angle.
And that same night was the night that Mick Foley won the title for the first time. It was Mick Foley as Mankind against The Rock, and Stone Cold had been, I don't know if he was hurt or he was kind of off TV for the last couple weeks, and he came out and the glass shattered, and it's still to this day the loudest pop gotta be in the history of wrestling.
Yeah.
You could just see, even if you don't watch it with sound, you could just see the crowd. Everybody in the crowd just leaps out of their chairs, going crazy. Stone Cold comes out, hits The Rock with the chair. Mick Foley wins the title, and it changed everything. It was like the pinnacle of the war changing, and WWE taking, or WWF, whatever, it was WWF at the time, took over the war, and they never looked back at that point.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just the finish on, me as a fan, like, I was out for 13 years after that. Like, I every once in a while I turned it on and see if there was anything that caught my interest. It never really did. And there was a small point in there where they did an ECW One Night Stand, and they kind of brought ECW back.
Oh yeah.
And I watched it again because I got really into ECW in 2000, which was the last year when they eventually died. So when they brought it back, I was really excited because I thought they were going to run with it. And they were going to with Rob Van Dam. They actually put the title on him. They put the ECW title and the WWE title there and beat John Cena at that show. And then a few weeks later, Dam and Sabu get pulled over, and they got a bunch of marijuana and pipes and whatever in their car, and it was all over the news. And they had to take the title off of Rob Van Dam. I think they gave it to the Big Show or something.
I saw Sabu wrestle about a month ago.
Where at?
ARW, Atomic Revolution Wrestling in Cocoa Beach, Florida. I think it's actually just Cocoa, Florida, but I got a flyer from one of them. I go to school at the University of Central Florida, so I got a flyer while I was downtown leaving, I think, a Raw show. It could have been a SmackDown, but I think it was a Raw. But I was leaving, and they handed a flyer out, and I was like, yeah, sure, 30 minutes away, I'll go. And then I checked on Facebook, and it was like, Sabu's going to be there. I was like, I have to see Sabu. He was incoherent. I don't really know. He didn't look like he really knew what was going on. But it was always good to see Sabu.
I'm sure he was on something, but he's amazing. I mean, he's still, even to this day, he's still fun to watch. He's going to put on a show for you.
Him and RVD are doing something for Impact, aren't they?
Are they making an appearance?
I think so, yeah. I think they're making I'll have to look that up. We'll talk about that on the next show. But I'm pretty sure they are coming back. So, Dan Dan, you didn't really tell me what brought you back to wrestling.
So that's, I kind of bounced back a little bit with it was like 2005, 2006 when they were doing that. And then when, Sabu and everybody got pulled over, they took the title off of them, and they kind of never really got into it. They never really let ECW go the way they, I think, originally intended. And I think a lot of it has to do with Vince McMahon just couldn't trust those guys. And you gotta.
Well, Vince McMahon can't trust anyone.
Rightfully so. Rob Van Dam got this biggest opportunity of his life, and then he gets pulled over, because he can't, stop smoking pot. Which, whatever side of the fence you want to go on, you still can't really do it now. He couldn't stop doing it. So, anyways, once ECW kind of officially died, and they didn't really run with it, I fell back out of wrestling again, and I didn't get back into it until the WWE Network came out, and I ordered it. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, $10 a month, and you get every single thing. Well, $9.99, and you got every single old pay-per-view, all the old shows. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go. I want to get that. I'm gonna watch all the old.
You say I'm the WWE guy, but you just directly plug their network.
Oh, I don't. I mean, hell, it's a great deal. Everybody should have the network if you're a wrestling fan.
It's fantastic. I wouldn't be the wrestling fan I am without it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't beat that. Everything in their library is on there. Close to it. There's still stuff they're adding all the time, but all the old Attitude stuff's on there. So that's the reason I bought it.
Yeah.
And, I had that, so that was the whole reason I bought it. Was I just wanted to watch the Attitude Era and didn't watch it all. But you also got every pay-per-view, the current ones. So I'm like, well, what the hell? I might as well check it out. And this was at WrestleMania 30 time when they were going with Danny Bryan, won the title.
Oh, the New Orleans one?
Yeah. So I got into it right at that point. So
it's a good time.
Danny Bryan fan. Well, the thing was, I was kind of curious about CM Punk, and because I heard about the pipe bomb, and I kind of checked out his highlights a little bit. He's a guy I really would have been a fan of, following him, every week. But he fell out right at that time. They ran with Danny Bryan. That's when I got back into it, but I never really fell in love with it again. I watched it. I was into it. I was interested, but I never really fell in love with it until 2016, I watched Wrestle Kingdom for the first. I watched it was the first time I ever watched New Japan, and the reason I checked it out was because AJ Styles and Nakamura had signed with WWE, and Dave Meltzer was talking all about him. I had heard about him talking about these guys for a while, but once they signed, I'm like, okay, I gotta check this out. And I saw that they were wrestling each other, so I watched that and I'm like, oh my god! Like I didn't know wrestling could be this good until I saw that. So I fell in love with wrestling, and I've kind of been obsessed with New Japan and Kenny Omega and all those guys, and kind of seeing where they're going. So that's kind of where I'm at right now with professional wrestling. I'm much more of an AEW guy, New Japan guy than I am a WWE guy.
That's interesting. If you had to decide between AEW and New Japan, I mean, obviously you don't, but if you did, given there's no track record with AEW, which one would you go with?
I would go with AEW.
You're that confident?
I'm that confident, and I think he is the guy in professional wrestling right now.
Kenny Omega?
Yeah.
He very well is probably the best wrestler in the world. I'll give you that. So that's your story. How you kind of fell in love with wrestling, fell out, and are back into at least the Japanese, not WWE side.
Yeah, I could say non-WWE. And when I say WWE, I'm not including NXT in that either. Like, because I think
just main roster.
Fantastic. Like, I'm just the main roster.
What about 205 Live?
I don't even really.
It's so good. I'm always going to push the cruiserweights. I'm always going to push the women on this show. So if you don't like that, you should stop listening.
They didn't need to just have the 205 Live guys on the shows.
Yes, I liked it much better when there was a segment on Raw, because you kind of felt like, hey, maybe I will watch 205 Live.
Raw's a 3-hour show, and they flat out came out and said on Twitter, tough to write a 3-hour show. Then put 205. Why do you have 205 Live as a separate thing?
Yeah,
make that part of Raw. And let them go. Let them go wrestle 20-25-minute match. You fill up that time with good quality wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, you know the reason is because they want another thing on the network for their numbers to be boosted. But that's just how it's going to be. So, a little history about my wrestling fandom. I've been a wrestling fan for about 2 years, maybe 3. The first show I can remember watching was WrestleMania, I guess it would be 32 in Orlando. Is that right? The one that had Undertaker and Roman Reigns headline. Because that's the first match that I kind of remember. And as much as people want to hate on WWE, and as much as I look back at that match and go, that was not a good match, it did hook me, the idea that Roman Reigns was going to quote-unquote retire The Undertaker. The theatrics of it were really good. A friend kind of just said, hey, do you want to watch wrestling? And I said, I've never done it before, so let's check it out. And I kind of haven't looked back. I haven't stuck with just WWE, obviously. I know New Japan has a superior talent, roster, booking, etc.
I wouldn't even say that. I wouldn't even say they have a superior roster. I think they just have superior booking.
That's true. All right, I'll give you that, because there's a whole lot of talent on the WWE main roster. But in any effect, New Japan is better. But WWE has been something that I've been watching and writing for our site about for a long time, and I found that one of the most interesting things for me is how do you book that 3-hour show? I don't really watch the shows anymore. Whether this is better or for worse, you can decide. But I don't watch the shows to find out what happened. I watch the show kind of knowing what's going to happen. Because of, what, if you want to call them dirt sheets, you can call them dirt sheets. But, I read The Observer. I listen to a lot of other shows. I read a lot of news. I, dig into things a lot. You kind of know where things are going to go because it's a business and money can kind of tell you where it goes. But I watch it to see how they get there and not where do they go. And I think a lot of people have a hard time with that. But in the 2 years that I watched it, I've realized that that's kind of what I call the new kayfabe. Because if you don't take everything WWE does with like a grain of salt, I hear people yelling online all the time, like, they're just messing with me. They're just doing exactly what the opposite of what I said because they know it would be a smart idea. And it's like, no, they're not. But they also know that you quote-unquote smarks are constantly trying to figure it out. So forgive them if they're trying to find a new way to, tell you the same story. And I think, case in point, that Becky Lynch, kind of what's going on there is a good point, because they're trying to do the Stone Cold storyline, but you watch the Stone Cold storyline live, and it's hard to replicate, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But it felt like at the beginning with Ronda Rousey, like that's kind of where they were going to go with her. But it never really caught fire. Like the fans never really, they embraced her at first, but I think it was more because she was a star.
Well, Ronda's got the heel look. She's always had the heel look.
The heel look. Their personality kind of leans more to being a heel.
Yeah, she's a tough, she's a bad bitch. Like, there's nothing more about it. She's going to go in there and, make you tap out. Like, that's just who she is, and she should be a heel. Like, her and Shayna in a heel stable, the 4 horsewomen of MMA versus the 4 horsewomen of WWE, like, that's gonna happen eventually somewhere down the line. And Ronda's natural born heel, you can already see it shining through in this Becky Lynch thing. So yeah, they could have done the Stone Cold thing with her, but I think Becky Lynch more organically kind of rose to that because they wanted her. The fans wanted her to succeed, and that's kind of the way it was with Stone Cold, even though
she does kind of that Stone Cold type storyline around her, but she feels more like the Daniel Bryan story a little bit more to me, where it was more the crowd like forced it upon WWE creative to book her as more of a prominent character, more of a championship level female wrestler. The fans wanted it, as opposed to like WWE creative are thinking, planning it out, a year ahead of time. Like, okay, we're going to get to this point where we're going to have Becky Lynch against Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania. I don't think that was ever really in the card.
No,
I think it was always supposed to be Ronda Rousey and Charlotte. Like, the minute Ronda Rousey came in, that was going to be the point where it was going to be Ronda Rousey against Charlotte in a big time WrestleMania match. But Becky Lynch was never even probably in the thought process, but the crowd forced it upon them to put Becky in that type of situation, and it reminds me a lot more of Daniel Bryan than kind of the Stone Cold story.
Yeah, the Daniel Bryan comparison is probably better than the Stone Cold comparison, but they want her to be the badass that Stone Cold was. So I think that's the deal. But did you see the angle they ran with them on Raw this week?
Yeah, I caught the last 20 minutes of Raw with her having to do the apology deal.
Yeah, so basically what Dan's talking about is at the beginning of Raw this week, they did an angle. Last week, Becky Lynch was on both Raw and SmackDown, and she basically attacked Stephanie McMahon and Triple H, but came out as the babyface both times, even though she was the one kind of being the aggressor. But there was a storyline suspension, so this week, the storyline suspension was lifted, and all that had to happen was Becky Lynch needed to apologize to McMahon and Triple H. But for some reason, Becky didn't want to apologize, and this didn't make any sense to me because I'm always the type of person who is okay with swallowing my pride and saying what needs to be said if it means I'm going to get the main event of WrestleMania, right? Like, if I'm going to get that kind of acclaim or praise, then do what needs to be done. If they're offering me a pre-show match, then obviously I'm not going to apologize. But in storyline, wouldn't you, as a badass, just be okay with lying to everyone and apologizing just so you can get your way? So why do we have a 3-hour angle with her figuring out if she could apologize or not?
I don't know. It feels like something, if they're doing the Stone Cold thing, like you said, like, I don't see Stone Cold coming out right away and apologizing. That's just not something he would do. That's not something he would do in his character, especially when he knows he's in the right. But I could that part doesn't bother me too much because you do have to build some type of.
I guess it's nitpicking.
Show. And if you keep kind of going back to it for this reminds me of the Attitude Era. They used to do that. They would keep going back to it throughout the show, and then they would end it with finally, it was Stone Cold in that time. Right now it's Becky Lynch come out and finally giving the apology.
Yeah, it did hold ratings.
Vince McMahon goes out just like he would have in the Attitude Era. Comes out and, flips the script.
Yeah, people wanted to see what Becky Lynch was going to say at the end of it, so people held on through all 3 hours of Raw, which is
a good way to do it. I mean, it's a good way to.
Yeah, I'll give you that, but it was just the internal turmoil that she had about apologizing. It seemed very clear cut, and at the end, I think Alexa Bliss said this and said, or Alexa Bliss was the only one to tell her not to, and it was like, of course Alexa Bliss is going to tell you to not apologize. She wants a chance, and Becky saw right through that. So if she can have that kind of logic, why can't she do what Ronda said to her and swallow your pride? Get out there, apologize, and have that WrestleMania match against Ronda Rousey. Like, that's what Becky Lynch wants, so that's what she should go and do. I just had an issue with that throughout the show. But it left me thinking about it, so that's a good way to do it, and I agree that's very Attitude Era-esque of the 23-man booking team that they have? I have no idea. It's something absurd. I know there's one woman because they can't write for women. But speaking of women, there were...
How many are in creative for New Japan?
Isn't it like just Ghetto?
One person, Ghetto?
Just Ghetto? Yeah. Ghetto's got the mind of a 30-man team. But speaking of women, there were only 4 or 5 matches on this Raw. And the women are having an Elimination Chamber match on Sunday. So there's 3 teams from Raw and 3 teams from SmackDown. So on each show, the women had a 6-woman tag, 2, 2, and 2. On Raw, it was Nia Jax and Tamina, Bayley and Sasha Banks, the Boss and Hug connection, and then the Riot Squad with Ruby Riot on the sideline. So we have Mandy Rose and Sarah Logan. Is it? No, Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan. I get them all mixed up. But
they're all orange.
Yeah, there's so many women on Raw. I think there's something like 12 or 13 women, and all but like 3 of them are heels. So it's absurd. But in any event, Bayley and Sasha Banks lost. The stipulation for the match means that them losing, they're going to start the Elimination Chamber match. So we'll get to our predictions in a bit, but that tells me that they're going to be your Iron Man team. They're going to have to scratch and claw and fight through all these heels team, and probably will be your first, or quote-unquote first, because there was a women's tag team championship back in the day. But of this new incarnation, first women's tag team champions, I believe Sasha Banks and Bayley will make it. And then the other matches we had on the show, Finn Balor and Drew McIntyre, that ended disqualification. Finn Balor and Drew McIntyre? Vince is, whether he knows it or not, mildly racist. So there's an Irishman and a Scot, and those just go together in Vince's head. So I think that's how that works.
You're probably right.
I think it's subconscious. Like I said, I don't think he's actively racist. He doesn't, he says Martin Luther King is his personal hero. I don't think he's discriminating or anything. But in his head, people have certain roles, and 2 Europeans, well, goddamn, they gotta fight. So, anyways, Bobby Lashley's in the middle of this stuff with Lio Rush. I actually really love Lio Rush. He's, if you haven't heard him chanting Lashley, Lashley, it's annoying as all hell, and that's the kind of stuff that gets you over as a heel. Yeah, it's good heat. It's not that, remember when Jinder was race baiting against Shinsuke Nakamura?
God, I just want to realize.
Yeah. It's like, Shinsuke Nakamura, you're really going to make, like, Asian jokes? Like, he can do so much more. Like, let's just do that. On the show, you also had Braun Strowman, Finn Balor, Kurt Angle defeating Baron Corbin, Drew McIntyre, and Bobby Lashley. That actually stemmed from the DQ. So, Kurt Angle looked really old. He is. He's 50. He just turned 50, I think, in December.
Wear and tear from all,
the broken freaking neck.
Broken freaking neck in 1996. I mean, all of it. I mean, eventually just where's going to be all the drug use, all of it.
All of the drug use.
All the 2000s, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, his body has definitely been through a lot.
And why is he doing these matches? Why is he in pointless 6-man tags on Raw? And originally, I'm pretty sure he was out there either last week or this week to retire. The gimmick is he's going out there to go, I'm going to retire, and then they didn't let him retire because they attacked him last week, and now there's this angle. So I'm not really sure. I like Kurt Angle in the GM role. I thought he was good. It was something where he didn't have to work, but he was. You would respect Kurt Angle as your GM, would you not? GM role, and then give me an occasional big match at a SummerSlam, at a WrestleMania, at a Rumble, Survivor Series, whatever.
Exactly. They say that the authority figure role is played out, but it's not. If you do it right and have matches sparingly and don't make the authority figure the main focus of everything, like the McMahons are the central heels of the entire WWE, then it works. Nigel McGuinness was with ROH as a kind of a face authority figure, and he didn't do much, but when he did stuff, it was good. And WWE needs to get back to that with not this Baron Corbin stuff.
That's terrible. But Baron Corbin's the reason for the ratings going down.
It's hilarious that they acknowledge their ratings going down on television. Isn't that some WCW stuff?
That's not what it is.
They acknowledge the competition. I'm surprised they aren't running attack ads on AEW when they don't even have TV yet. That just seems like something that they're bound to do. Like, hey, everybody, don't watch AEW, and it's what's AEW? For half their fans aren't going to know.
Goofy caricatures of Cody Rhodes and
yeah, billionaire Ted,
and a big round table.
Oh God, could you imagine Vince McMahon's caricature of Kenny Omega and Ibushi? I don't want to think of it.
Well, Ibushi's not going to be.
I know he actually signed a deal.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's one of those things he never thought was going to happen.
I thought he was AEW bound for sure.
I did too. Golden Lovers all the way, man. It's okay. So after that match, we had Ruby Riott defeating Nikki Cross. So Nikki Cross just came in, and she's already losing to Ruby Riott. Ruby Riott has a match against Ronda Rousey for the championship at Elimination Chamber, so I guess Ruby Riott can't lose. But does Nikki Cross have to lose to Ruby Riott?
They could put somebody else in there.
Yeah, just bury... Lacey Evans, I'm fine. Bury her. She can't wrestle.
She shouldn't be on the main roster anyway.
She shouldn't... I don't want to say she shouldn't be in the ring. She obviously has a look. She's charismatic, I'm sure. That character appeals to some. But at the end of the day, her work is not strong enough to...
So where does she belong?
NXT.
Where she can develop.
Exactly. They don't understand...
I mean, this is probably going to happen a lot of podcasts, but taking these in different directions. But, NXT... my whole theory with NXT, it's supposed to, we can argue about this, but it's supposed to be a developmental territory where younger wrestlers that they have signed can work and get better and prove themselves until they get to the point where they're over as a character and their in-ring work is to the quality of main roster. Why do they have all these prime wrestlers like Ciampa and Gargano and Velveteen Dream and Aleister Black? You got all these guys They're in their prime. Their characters are over. Obviously, they have the in-ring ability. Why are these guys wasting away in NXT? And then they're bringing up people like a Lacey Evans who belongs in NXT so she can develop.
Yeah, I mean, where did they get Lacey Evans from?
I don't even know where she's from.
She's probably not from anywhere. They just... I know there was a whole story with her in the Mae Young Classic, but for more or less, she's a WWE talent, and WWE talents haven't grown up through the NXT system the way you want to. Every NXT when I say superstar, I don't just mean wrestler. I mean like a superstar has come from PWG or from New Japan or from somewhere else. It hasn't been WWE creating them unless we're talking about Roman Reigns or someone like that.
That's fine. I mean, that's fine.
But they're misutilizing NXT, and I'm kind of agreeing with you that they leave these guys to toil down there, and it's like Johnny Gargano doesn't need more time in NXT.
Neither does Ciampa. Like, that story is incredible.
But Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, none of those guys.
And I think a core problem is I don't think Vince McMahon, and I think it's Vince McMahon more than anybody, realizes that these guys are already stars.
Well, he doesn't watch NXT.
Just because they weren't in, he doesn't understand that the indies are not just indies anymore. It's not like the indies that it was in the mid 2000s.
Yeah,
wrestling fans know who these guys are. You can bring I think AJ Styles should have been a revelation to him when he came out with the Royal Rumble. Like, nobody thought he was going to get that type of pop. I think we knew.
Yeah, I mean, he got his pop.
And it was a huge... And he became a star right off the bat. Like, as soon as he joined the Royal Rumble, he was a star.
Yeah.
You just knew. As soon as he walked out, he was a star. He had the pop. But he was already a star because people knew him from New Japan, what he was doing there. Like, if you guys are huge stars in Ring of Honor, have paid their dues and people know who they are. Like, you can bring them right onto the main
Kevin
roster.
Steen, El Generico.
Get comfortable and get used to it, fine. Put them in NXT for a year. If that's what you want, that should be the max.
Yeah.
No more than a year before you bring them up to the main roster, just so they can get adjusted with the environment, adjusted with the rings. It's, the rings are different. Let them get accumulated and let them build their character, what they're going to be in WWE. Let them do it for a year, but after that, you got to bring them up to the main roster because they're just wasting away there.
Well, they also seem to think that everyone in NXT needs to win the championship, unless you're a woman. God forbid you're a woman. Then Shayna Baszler has, Carafina Clutch on the title. But every guy that they've wanted to make into a star has to win that NXT title, Like Aleister Black. Why is Aleister Black still down there?
Yeah, I mean, he's run his course. There's nothing more for him.
He's great. Just put him up. Like, he should have been in the Rumble, Johnny Gargano was nice, but he didn't stay up, and I guess the NXT call-ups are never really stay up. But sometimes they do, and that just seems like the place to do it. They're definitely misusing NXT, but I'm also not complaining about the product.
No, I'm not complaining about the product at all. But the problem is that product at NXT is so great, but the storylines that are being used there, the quality of the wrestling that is going on there, it should be on the main roster.
I mean,
you put Gargano and Ciampa as the main storyline on Raw. Man, I'm watching every week. You kidding me?
You're not wrong, but at the end of the day, they're going to do what they're going to do, and Vince has final say on who gets called up, and he doesn't, he sees glimpses of these things, so.
And it's like he thinks it's 1995 again.
Yeah.
Lars Sullivan, EC3.
Lars Sullivan couldn't even get out in the ring. I mean,
It's not about the look anymore. It's not about looking like a bodybuilder. It's not about that anymore.
Yeah.
It's about being a phenomenal wrestler who has charisma.
Very rarely does the look translate into anything.
Omega is the guy. That's the prototypical guy that wrestling fans love.
And does he have the look?
He's got the charisma. I mean, he does have a look to some degree.
But it's not the Vince look.
Yeah, it's not the Vince look. He has tons of charisma. One of the top 5 wrestlers in the world, and he can talk. He can do everything that you need. But if he was, say, he was just in NXT right now, and wasn't doing all these things with New Japan. Say he got called up before when AJ Styles came over in 2016. Kenny Omega was a junior, and then he moved up time when AJ left, Kenny moved up and took his spot. Let's say that he came over at the same time AJ Styles did, and he just went to NXT. Do you think he ever gets called up? Like, do you think he ever becomes the guy that he is?
Probably not.
Probably not. No chance in hell.
Yeah, I mean, almost definitely not. But so as good as NXT is, and as good as Kenny Omega is, we have to go finish something bad. We got to get through Raw. So we have 2 more finishes on this show. Dean Ambrose defeated EC3. It was a very quick match. Seth Rollins was actually out there, and Dean Ambrose confronted him and said he's got one thing to say: slay the beast. I guess they're friends now, or when it comes to Brock Lesnar, things are different. I don't know. They were just at each other's throats for months, and now that Dean Ambrose has announced that he's not going to resign, are they going to try to kiss and make up before, maybe get one more Shield bump at WrestleMania or something?
Why are they even doing anything with Ambrose? Why is Ambrose involved with the main event? With Brock Lesnar and Seth Rollins. Why is he even talking to him?
Well, he's not. He's involved with EC3 and Nia Jax.
I know,
but
why would he even have any type of interaction like that?
Yeah, it was stupid. There was no need for it. They can always do the kiss and makeup thing later. They can do it in an actual angle, not just like a walk-in, what's he doing? Oh, he said something nice to me. And then they always have Renee, and Corey tosses it to Renee. If you don't know, Renee Young is the real-life wife of Dean Ambrose. And they point that out very clearly on the show. But Corey always asks, what does that mean, Renee? And Renee's like, I don't know. It's just, please mute the TV if you try to watch Raw, because it's horrible. But he pinned EC3, and that was EC3's first match. EC3 has not talked or wrestled up until this point, and one of EC3's strengths is he's a good promo. He's kind of a douche. He can be a douche, and let him get the promo. But right now they have him flipping back and forth between babyface and heel, and no one's really sure what he is because he isn't talking. We know that Alexa Bliss has the hots for him, even though she's engaged in real life to, I believe, Buddy Murphy.
So this is another thing. We talked about this off the air. With WWE as a whole, the main roster, and what frustrates me more than anything else, and this is something Paul Heyman pointed out when he talked about ECW. He said his main objective was to always hide weaknesses of his characters and of the guys he had. Like, EC3 should be doing a ton of talking segments and be that ultimate heel that he can be. He should have had a ton of vignettes before he even came on. Just having these 3 to 4 minute talking segments where he just came off as a total douchebag.
Instead, he had those video packages of his abs.
Yeah, I mean, ridiculous. He should have been talking, and all those would just come off as a total douchebag, and you should hate his guts before he ever comes on the air, or ever even comes out to a WWE ring on the main roster. That's how it should have been before he ever entered. And now you got him on, and you don't know whether it's a face. You don't know. He never talks. You're not taking advantage of his strengths. It's so frustrating. They do this with a ton of the guys on the roster. And it's just a fatal flaw with them in general.
Yeah, I can't really explain this one. They're not doing it right. It doesn't really make sense. Dean Ambrose had a good line, at least. He asked this was a couple weeks ago, but he asked where are EC 1 and 2? I mean, these are valid questions. But, EC3 is going to have to talk, and hopefully they can rebrand him or something very quickly, because this isn't working, and this is not going to get him over, especially he got cradled and pinned. By a
guy who's leaving.
In his first match. If that doesn't make you a geek, I don't know what does.
It's beyond comprehension. Even if you don't even have plans for EC, how do you have him lose to a guy who's leaving in 2 months? He's gone.
I mean, my opinion is that Dean Ambrose is not gone. In
It's all a huge storyline?
I think WWE released an article that said Dean Ambrose is not re-signing in April. I think that means they covered their ass and he can leave, but it also means that he can re-sign in May.
I guess.
You know how they are about these things. Like, they're going to try, like I said, there's a new kayfabe. They're going to try to work everyone every way they can. And if, you're smart, quote unquote, and you think you know what's up, they're going to try to make you doubt it or try to get there any which way they can. I just think the whole Dean Ambrose situation's odd. I know he's unhappy, but and I know Dave Meltzer says 100% that this is a real story, but he also says a lot of the time plans change. So plans could change.
He could. He's still under contract.
Yeah.
Right now. They could all of a sudden say, hey.
And they have to do stuff with him because if they freeze him, they'll do that Daniel Bryan thing.
Can they do that, though? See, that's a question I have. I know Daniel Bryan got his contract frozen, but they did it, in real time. You know what I mean? So, when he was out...
Well, Dean Ambrose was out, too.
He was out, but I don't think they froze his contract.
But they can just say retroactively, you need to work those months.
I don't know if that's something you can do. Retroactively say, hey, you were out for this amount of time.
They've done it. So I don't see why
they've done it with other talent.
Yeah, because it's not like if you're not cleared, I don't think it means you have to be out technically. They can grant you a medical leave if they want, but Daniel Bryan, part of his thing was he came back for a long time to get out of that contract and was a GM. He didn't take bumps, he didn't do anything, but he could talk and be a personality. That you work your dates and you get out of your contract that way. It's all behind the scenes and it's hard to tell, but you don't know how WWE's going to play this. WWE is a bunch of people coming to them saying they want their release, and actually that brings me to our final decision of the Raw episode this Monday. The Revival defeated Bobby Roode and Chad Gable to win the Raw Tag Team Championship. Did you watch this match?
Yeah, this was a good match. I can't take anything away from it.
Yeah, I mean, Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder are really good wrestlers. Chad Gable is actually one of my favorite wrestlers, and I thought he was great in this. Bobby Roode is another one of my favorite wrestlers, and it's not often that I say he was probably the worst one in the match, but he was just by default. These other three guys are really good. They work kind of a similar style. It's somewhat, it's technical. There's some amateur wrestling, at least built into it. I think this was a great match, and I think they should do more things like this, but you think that they won the championship not because they deserve it, but because why?
I think it's kind of funny that all of a sudden they're getting pushed when they said they wanted out. And they want out because they want to go to AEW. And they want their rivalry and their match with the Young Bucks, which is what a lot of fans like me want to see. It's been built up as a storyline for over a year now with the Young Bucks doing their show and calling them out. And I think that's what everybody wants. And now all of a sudden they come out and say, hey, we want to leave, and then they get a push. Why would they do that? Why would they give them a push if they didn't say, hey, we don't want you guys to leave. We think you're great talent. Here, we're going to give you a push now. We're going to give you the titles. If they wouldn't have said anything and they would have just kept going on, you think they get this push right now? I don't think they do.
I mean, the timing of it is definitely suspect. Would they get this push? I think they would. I think that they had that kind of hardcore fan base backing them, and they've been unhappy for a while. They would have probably gotten this push, but I think, again, there's something more to it.
Maybe not as quickly as they did.
Yeah, I think it would have come in a couple of months rather than right now. So there's definitely something to do with the time aspect of it, but I think overall they were going to get a tag team championship. They were NXT tag team champions, two-time NXT tag team champions, so it was just a matter of time in my opinion. But the AEW stuff does have some merit to it, I'll give you that. So the final thing that happened on Raw Becky Lynch decided to apologize. She said, "I'm sorry" to Triple H and Stephanie McMahon in the ring. McMahon said some slick things, but Lynch kind of just took it and apologized. They walked out, and then Vince McMahon interrupted. And he said that Stephanie was right, that it was going to be one of the biggest matches in WrestleMania history, but it wasn't going to be Becky Lynch. It was going to be Charlotte. So Vince McMahon, Mr. McMahon, has now put Charlotte in Becky Lynch's place and placed a 60-day suspension on Becky Lynch, which expires, he said, 5 days after WrestleMania. But I think I counted and it was actually the day after Mania. I might be, but it's after Mania regardless, so the math isn't wrong. But what do you think about Charlotte taking Becky Lynch's place? And obviously a lot of people assume that this is going to turn into the three-way that we've been somewhat promised. Becky Lynch.
Imagine if they just said, yeah, Becky Lynch is suspended for 60 days and they never brought her back into the story.
Man, I almost would actually... I would love it, actually. I think that would be funny. I think that's the way to get the new kayfabe over. I think that's how you work the marks.
It's a way to kill your fan base.
It is a way to kill your fan base, but there's some sick people like me who would find it really, really funny. Charlotte versus Ronda isn't a bad match.
No, well, they fought. What was it? Was it SummerSlam? No, Survivor Series. Survivor Series, because it was supposed to be Becky Lynch and Jax broke her nose.
Yeah.
It was terrible. And Charlotte jumped in for her, and that was a phenomenal match. So, we talked about earlier with the show, like, the whole build was supposed to be Charlotte and Ronda.
Yeah, it was never Ronda Becky.
Yeah, so, yeah, that would be a great match. And let me ask you this, do you think they're not going with Becky and Ronda, which at its face kind of seems like what you would do with where the storyline was going? Do you think they're adding in Charlotte just kind of as a safety net in case Ronda doesn't, it doesn't gel right, the match maybe wouldn't go quite right, if it was just one-on-one, you kind of add Charlotte in. Now you got this prime, probably the best pure wrestler in the women's division into that match now. It kind of provides, like I said, kind of a safety net for the whole thing.
Well, that's not true. The best pure wrestler in the women's division is Asuka, who I actually think... I think she should be in this match. I think there should be a four-way. Yeah, I don't understand why not. She's the SmackDown Women's Champion. I mean, I know a four-way is kind of gross in the main event and stuff, but if we're going to unify the titles, we already have one set of tag team women's titles belts.
What if it was I kind of call back these stuff, but they used to do three-way dances and four-way dances where it was not one pinfall, it was elimination. So you would end up at the very end, you would end up with one-on-one match. And I thought a three-way dance, if you're not including Asuka, it would just be a three-way dance. I thought that would be perfect, and then have Charlotte be eliminated first, and then you kind of build it up. You have the three of them kind of go at for 15 minutes. It's kind of more of a Ronda and Charlotte beating up on Becky, and then somehow Becky gets a roll up on Charlotte or something, and then all of a sudden Charlotte's out, and then you get that stare down with Becky and Ronda. After you've already had 15 minutes of wrestling, they're all kind of a little bit beat up, and then they're just standing at each other, facing each other in the middle of the ring in the main event of WrestleMania. I think that would be the perfect moment.
That would work. That would definitely work.
That's how I would prefer it. I always prefer these three-way matches. I prefer it more as three-way dances where you eliminate.
I like that better than my Asuka idea.
And if you had Asuka, you could have her in it, and at least she could get her.
I just think unifying the belts is something that needs to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, we already have this kind of thing going on right now where Becky's, I know she's a Royal Rumble winner, but she's bouncing around from Raw and Smackdown. Why not just have everyone be cross-brand? Yeah,
I'd like to see the women. No, I'd like to see the whole women division on one show and the tag team division on one show. So, say SmackDown, you're going to get all your, you're going to get good quality tag team wrestling, the tag team titles on SmackDown, and then the women's division's on Raw. If you watch Raw, you're going to get, the women's title And you kind of keep them separated that way, and then they each just have one title.
I mean, I agree. I think that's the way to do it. Raw this week was okay. The Becky Lynch angle kind of kept it strong. I enjoyed it, which is not something I say every week, so we'll chalk it up as a win. SmackDown,
probably down, but this story,
the ratings were down, but
yeah, I mean, well, the rating different animal, but this storyline in general, I think is quality.
Yeah, I think anything with Becky Lynch,
that this should be the main event.
Yes, absolutely. Anything with Becky Lynch should be considered must-see TV right now. If you're a wrestling fan, I don't think you can like AEW and New Japan and things like that and not like what Becky Lynch is doing right now. Stephanie McMahon is annoying, but she's amazing because you believe that she's kind of evil, but she's not. She's not really. So Raw was a show. Not good or bad, just a show. Did you watch SmackDown?
I caught the highlights of it, read enough on it.
So we won't go too much into SmackDown. We're going to start our in-depth reviews of each show next week.
Yeah, I'm going to be forced to watch 5 hours.
Yes. But we'll go over the first hour that I saw. Unfortunately, that doesn't include the gauntlet match, so I'm sorry if you were waiting this long to get to the gauntlet match. We will talk about it. I will try to talk about it in the next show that we do. I'll watch it after this. So, Pedro Morales, he passed away earlier this week. I think we sent out a tweet about it, but the show opened with a graphic for him. And they basically just recap the rest, everything that I just said. Charlotte's replacing Becky. Lots of boos. Charlotte came in and cut a promo.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah,
she's gotten over it.
Yeah, she's definitely a heel, and Ronda's kind of turning into a heel too. I don't know if the idea is to have Ronda as a tweener, but I think everything is working out the way that it should, and the fact that people are legitimately upset with Charlotte is funny. It's like, what? You're getting worked. You have to know this. But, so we had another 3-woman tag, or 3 tag team woman match. Carmella, Naomi, Mandy Rose, and Sonya Deville, and the Iconics. So Carmella and Naomi won, and Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville got pinned. So Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville will be first in the Elimination Chamber with, was it Sasha Banks and Bayley? Yeah. So I think Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville are going to be out quick. Really? We'll get to this, but I have mixed feelings. I thought the Iconics were going to be starting it. Not really much to say about this. This was a bad match. It didn't give me much hope for what was going to happen. Mustafa Ali cut a promo, said he couldn't compete in the Elimination Chamber. Did you see that picture of him on Twitter with his eye welled shut? Man, I know people were calling Randy Orton unsafe after that. Randy Orton's safe as can be. He's had like a 20-year career, and you don't hear these kind of things. Yeah, things just happen. Mustafa Ali, he's obviously being a good sport about it. He's gonna get his push, but that means he wasn't in the gauntlet match, and he's not gonna be at Elimination Chamber on Sunday. The next segment we had was Miz TV, not just Miz TV. The Miz made sure to correct the fans to add the Mick. So, have you watched any of the Shane McMahon Miz stuff?
I've seen enough.
I like it. I think it's funny. Yeah, but we could use cheesy. It's a PG show.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like they could do a little bit of Miz, but I'm a fan of the Miz. I'll come out and say it. I know a lot of people don't like him. Think he's a terrible in ring work. I don't know. I'm a fan of the Miz's work.
I mean, I'm not. So there we go. We'll butt heads on this eventually.
We butt heads on the Miz. We butt heads on.
Shane, I think they said he's going to be on an episode of NCIS, so there's that for his exposure. People forget that Shane isn't anything but like a cast member. He doesn't have ownership, I don't think. He used to, but when he left the company, he just came back. Like, that general manager role that he plays or played is just a character. It's not, he doesn't have any actual say in what's going on. He's just another wrestler, basically. They did a Black History Month thing, which I thought was pretty good. In the past month, I think we've seen like 3 or 4 videos heavily focused on Martin Luther King. I'm not complaining about it. I just think given the treatment of African Americans in WWE, it's a little funny or ironic that Vince McMahon is pushing MLK this hard. Because has there ever been a African American WWE champion?
If you don't count The Rock.
He's half black, right?
Yeah.
But he's mostly Samoan. I mean, yeah, there's not a lot of diversity, and I just think it's funny how much they push, like, you know, they do this with the bullying campaigns and things like that, but then they have Nia Jax bully the hell out of everyone, I guess. Yeah, and it's with Vince's sense of humor. Let's not pretend that you're, you know, Vince. So, I have the results from the Gauntlet match. I didn't watch it, so I'm not going to comment on it. I'll tell you what I heard, and I'll tell you what I know happened. So, the New Day replaced Mustafa Ali. I saw them do a little gimmick before I fell asleep. Each one of them kind of stepped up to the plate. At the end of the day, it was Kofi. It always seems to be Kofi. I know they fall back on him as their de facto leader because he's been there forever. But I would have liked to see maybe Xavier Woods or Big E here.
I think Kofi's the best wrestler out of the 3.
He's the most experienced, but that's because the other 2 don't get a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I think Big E has potential.
Big E has loads of potential.
I mean, I'm going to say this about a lot of guys, but Big E is a prime example of a guy who benefit from going somewhere else.
You think he should be in AEW, basically?
AEW, wage, like, he could be an absolute superstar as a singles wrestler.
I'd watch Big E. Well, I guess Kitamura is not in New Japan anymore, but I'd watch Big E versus Kitamura. I think that would be two massive guys.
Man, it'd be a great spot for him too, man.
Yeah,
I think he's just wasting away right now. I mean, he's a great character right now. I mean, absolutely great character. You can't take anything away from him.
They seem to have fun, so I'm not
in terms
gonna...
of what the New Day has done, I mean...
Yeah, I'm definitely not upset with Kofi being in the Gauntlet match either. I just think it's always... I always tend to see Kofi, and it's like... Yeah, could we just see someone else? I mean, Kofi does the spots at the Royal Rumble. You know, he had the whole, what am I going to do this year? It's like, you don't have to do something. You could just get eliminated. But anyways.
I think it's run its course, too.
Yeah, this was the last year, hopefully, of that. But Kofi Kingston defeated Daniel Bryan in the first leg of the Gauntlet, which is somewhat surprising to read, but I guess it's not, because Daniel Bryan's probably going to retain, in my opinion, so that's okay.
I'd be shocked.
Yeah. And then Kofi beat Jeff Hardy. These were long segments. He was in there for a long time. I don't exactly have the numbers, but I know...
50 minutes.
Yeah, it was near an hour. Twitter exploded. We love Kofi, etc., etc. Kofi defeated Joe. I mean, and then AJ Styles defeated Kofi. So, my problem with Gauntlet matches, and we ran a poll on Twitter about this... It doesn't matter until the last 2 people are in the ring, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but you could say that about anything. I mean, you could say that about the Royal
Okay, but with WWE's booking history, do you think a Gauntlet match is the match that they should be putting on?
They've been pretty good, man.
I guess. All right. Yeah, I mean, this one wasn't bad, I suppose. I mean, I fell asleep.
Something different. I mean, as long as start doing it, every other week. If you...
Yeah, as long as they stay... I just think there's always the 50-minute Iron Man. It was 52 minutes, I think. But there's always a 50-minute Iron Man, 60-minute Iron Man, and you know that if they start winning a bunch. They're probably not going to win. Except, I guess, Seth Rollins. Did Seth Rollins win the one on Raw? He didn't.
He did.
I don't think he did.
You remember, it shows you how important that match was.
That's what my point. Why waste it? On Raw, a 60-minute gauntlet match is a fine idea.
I mean,
but
to say how important the match was, that just goes back to everything WWE does. I mean, nothing's...
That's true. I can't tell you what happened last week, really.
Because none of it matters.
So then Styles beat Kofi, and then Styles got defeated by Randy Orton. So he hit the RKO for the pinfall. He ran in real quick and just kind of won it. So it was a good episode of SmackDown, I think. It didn't do the best in ratings, but it didn't do as bad as last week, because last week it went against State of the Union, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that it had really bad ratings last week, but I haven't seen numbers yet for this week, but...
So this is another thing that we can kind of get into for a minute. SmackDown's ratings have been just atrocious,
yes,
relative to the situation.
And they're going to Fox.
They're going to Fox. And
in September.
they have these ratings. I mean, I can't imagine they'd have these ratings on Fox, but if they have something close to this, or it's this bad, they're not going to be on Fox for very long.
Well, I think the company line right now is that Fox, in that time slot, has more viewers. So those viewers it's going to go to more homes and more, like, that 2 point whatever is automatically going to be a 3 point whatever. And that'll be enough to keep them up. I don't think that'll be the case, but I think that's the logic that they're running.
Not all those people are wrestling fans, man. I mean, the wrestling fans that are watching, those are the ones that are going to be watching. You're not getting the casual channel flipper.
I'm not trying to trash people who watch Fox, but I think anyone watching Fox at 8 p.m. on a Friday night is probably going to watch whatever the hell's on Fox at 8 p.m. on a Friday night.
I don't agree with that. Whatever's on there is probably some sitcom that they're interested in. So they're watching it for that specific
Keep it...
show.
Okay, on USA. On USA, what comes on after Raw? Do you know?
It used to be, what the hell is it called?
It's Chris Lee Knows Best.
Yeah, Chris Lee Best, yeah.
Yeah. I've never watched that show.
Neither have I.
But I imagine the same people who watch it are going to be like the same ones who will give wrestling a shot. Because if you're going to give Chris Lee Knows Best a shot...
Okay, you're either watching it because you like the show and you're freaking crazy, okay? Or
we're trashing
okay,
people. We're burying people who like Chris Lee Knows Best.
Yeah, well, I don't think we're going to get a lot of crossover for Chris Lee Knows Best.
I guess according to my logic.
But no, the ratings that some of those ratings that they're going to get for Chris Lee Knows Best are just people who forgot to turn their TV off.
Yeah.
Watching Raw. So, like, people try to equate wrestling fans who watch Chris Lee Knows Best. Like, no. Like, it's
you got a point.
On, and I think the thing with Fox is that it's not just people just rate this. I'm just going to have Fox on all day, and I'm not going to change the channel. Like, you're watching Fox at 8:30, 9, because you're watching a specific show, and that's how things are. You don't just. It's not just 2, 4, and 7 now. Like, you got all these different ways to watch content. So they're not going to get these casuals. Like, I just don't see it happening. Like, it's going to be wrestling fans who are watching the product because they like the product. And there's a lot of wrestling fans who don't like this product right now. And it's showing in the current ratings. And I think when they move to Fox, I don't think they're all going to suddenly get this huge jump just because they're on Fox. I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to be the wrestling fans who are going to watch it. If they don't like the product, they're not watching it. And if they don't get the ratings that they need to get, they're going to be moved to Fox Sports 1. And that's going to be huge if you consider what AEW is potentially doing, and the rumors are they're going to TBS or TNT. And now you're going to have a true ratings war. If they're on TNT or TBS, and WWE's on
FS1
USA or FS1, like,
there's a war. Yeah, I think you're right. It's concerning the way SmackDown's going, but this week was a good show, so I think fans could, if it continues to be good, fans will come back to it. And they're going to make SmackDown the A show once it's on Fox, so we really have to see how it all plays out.
your eyes, what is that? Like making SmackDown the A show? Because in my opinion, SmackDown's already the best.
Well, I think with the competition, it means that they're going to actually have to have an A show. It means they're going to have good booking. I mean, they're going to take a beating at some point, and then they'll snap out of it. But to be an actual A show, they're going to have to do some real booking, and they don't do that right now.
And do you think that breaking point is where they finally just say, "Hey, we've truly not just come out and say, have the McMahon family come out and Raw and say we're going to make a bunch of changes and then not make any changes." Like, when are they truly going to sit down as a company? Vince McMahon at the head of it, say, hey, we seriously have to make some changes in what we're doing because we have some legitimate competition right now, and we are about to go on Fox, and we don't want to get our show moved to Fox Sports 1.
I mean, you want to know the real answer to that? After the funeral. It's not happening until... I don't want Vince McMahon to die, but he's not the kind of man who's going to give up that power.
Not necessarily even give up the power, but just kind of wake up.
Yeah.
And say, like, if you're all the coming in, which they're making more money than they ever had, as a company, that's success. Money is success.
I think it's once they lose a TV deal. I mean, it's all about money, so it has to be about TV.
It comes to them and says, hey, if you don't get the ratings, we're moving you to Fox Sports 1.
Yeah.
That's got to be the wake-up call.
I think it's after they move to Fox Sports 1. I don't think it's the threatening, because the threatening won't scare him.
It can't even be like a warning, like, hey,
nah.
Like, it would be the actual move from Fox to Fox Sports 1 that changes things.
Nah, Vince won't bite there. He's a stubborn man. But all right, so we've talked a lot about Raw and SmackDown, so we're gonna move, I think, to our final topic of the night. We'll talk about this for a little bit. Predictions for Elimination Chamber. Elimination Chamber is tomorrow, which is Sunday, February 17, 2019. It looks like the main event is going to be the WWE Championship Elimination Chamber match. Daniel Bryan's defending against AJ Styles, Randy Orton, Samoa Joe, Kofi Kingston, and Jeff Hardy. Bryan has the odds, negative 505. Everyone else is pretty close. Styles is the next favorite, but it's not really that close. So, do you agree with that?
I think Daniel Bryan's going to lose that. I can't see him losing it here.
Yeah, it's Elimination Chamber is a good match.
The only way, the only see him losing it is, I don't even know what their direction is, what they're thinking the main event is. But if you're thinking maybe an AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan rematch, this is where you get the title back on AJ.
Yeah, I think that without him having a pin, Eric Rowan kind of helps him out. If Eric Rowan helps him out and kind of screws AJ Styles, that gives you a rematch and then a WrestleMania rematch for something. Elimination Chamber is hard to book. WWE falls into these patterns where, it's Elimination Chamber time of the year, so we have to have an Elimination Chamber match. I think this story works fine with Elimination Chamber, but I'm not sure that it's the best they could have done. I would have liked to just see another Bryan Styles match.
Yeah, or, I'd rather see Daniel Bryan not even be involved and it just be more of a number one contender.
Yeah, number one contender for Elimination Chamber makes way more sense. We have...
Like, the whole booking of it, like Daniel Bryan's the heel, right? He's supposed to be.
Yes. He's a phenomenal
and he has to go into an Elimination Chamber and defend his title against, 5 other guys?
Well, yeah, that's why I don't like it, but that's also why he can't lose, or else he looks like a stupid, not a good heel.
The whole concept of it.
Well, that's why I think Eric Rowan has to interfere, because I don't think he can do it on his own. There's just too many good guys.
Beats everybody in it.
Then that's a babyface push.
Yeah, babyface.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. WWE doesn't know the difference most of the time, and then they have another Elimination Chamber match. Did you say you were excited about the Women's Tag Team Championship Elimination Chamber?
Sarcastic.
Okay, all right. I'm glad that was sarcasm. I was a little terrified there. Banks and Bayley go in as the favorites. Nia Jax and Tamina are next. followed by Liv Morgan and Sarah Logan, Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. The Iconics and Naomi and Carmella have the worst odds to win the Women's Tag Team Championship Elimination Chamber match. I think it's a pretty safe bet the Boss and Hug Connection are walking away with this, right?
Yeah, I mean, just look at all these names. And who are the two names that stand out?
It's Banks and Bailey and Jackson Tamina.
I mean, Banks and Bailey, and even that, I mean...
Tamina doesn't stand out, but you know they're going to do something with Jax.
Everybody else is just kind of there, you know? They're all interchangeable for the most part. I mean, you don't need Jax because she's a terrible wrestler and hurts people.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody else, aside from Banks and Bailey, like, take them or leave them, you know?
I will say for Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville, they've been pretty good. I've watched them for a long time, and I was really sour on them when they came in. I thought, who are these girls? They did the whole Absolution thing. They're just riding Paige's coattails. And then they were kind of forced to do their own thing. And there's been subtle improvements. I like the Mandy Rose character as much as some people don't. And Sonya Deville has gotten better in the ring. So I like them in it, but you're right. Banks and Bailey are the only names in this match. Naomi and Carmella once upon a time maybe held some star power, but not anymore.
I feel like Sasha Banks and Bailey are just two prime examples.
Yeah.
Of two girls who should be absolute stars. They're just getting wasted away. They're primes of their career.
Well, I mean, you know why they have to be the inaugural Women's Tag Team Champions, right?
Why is that?
So they can finally get their breakup angle. It's been going on for like 8 years.
Jesus, man. Like, this should have happened.
They went to Dr. Shelby.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable like how Bailey came out at NXT and they ruined her so bad to the point where she was getting like I remember when Bailey came up and my wife was actually watching wrestling. She's not anymore. But she's like, man, I love Bailey. Like, there's no way. And she knew the whole deal. Like, she heard me, bitch and moan all the time about how they ruin everybody that comes up. Like, we both agree. Like, there's no way. Like, Bailey's the one constant. Like, there's no way.
Bailey was a lock.
Absolute.
They butchered her.
To the bank. They can't ruin her. She is just perfect. Like, you cannot ruin her. She is the ultimate baby face. And they ruined her to the point where she was getting rid of them. Like, at that point, you're, Jesus, man. Like, how bad is this creative? I'm going to go off and quite a lot, I'll be honest. Like, it's just because this stuff drives me crazy because you know how talented some of these wrestlers are, and they find ways to ruin them, and it's just so sad and frustrating.
Well, hopefully this will be a way for Banks and Bailey to kind of get some. They're not going to break up immediately, they'll have a good little run. So hopefully this goes well. But if you haven't read one of our reviews before, I do. My Stars of David. It's my own star rating system. It's not exactly Dave Meltzer's stars, but it's based off of it. I'm never going to go to 7 or 6 or 6.5. It's probably going to stay 1 to 5.
This match is not going to break the scale.
Yeah, that's my question. Is it over? I guess I'll give you over under 2.5 stars.
Man. Well, I mean, Sasha and Bailey match. I mean, they'll find a way to at least make some parts entertaining. But, man, that's tough. I'm going to have to take the under on it.
Yeah, I got to say under, because I think that if Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville came in late, it would have a chance to be kind of fun at the end. But Peyton Royce and Billie Kay aren't going to do anything. Naomi and Carmella aren't going to do anything. Liv Morgan, Sarah Logan, and then Jax and Tamina are going to be the final hurdle Banks and Bailey have to get over. So it's not going to be a great match, and you're right to be sarcastic. No one should expect much from it. We got the Raw Women's Championship, Ronda Rousey versus Ruby Riott. This is going to go, 2 minutes, and Rousey's going to make Riott tap out?
You got to believe.
Yeah, Rousey's at under 4,500, Riott's over 15, so... Yeah, these are fat odds. It would be a miracle. I actually think that this ends in like a DQ type deal. I think Becky comes out, or Charlotte comes out, or Charlotte watches the match and Becky comes out and interferes or does something. There's too much going on not to have Becky on a pay-per-view, right?
Yeah, she's got to make an appearance somewhere.
Yeah, and that's the perfect time for it. That's the angle. It's a boring match. If you're none the wiser, if you don't really think about it, you just think boring Rousey Riot match. But yeah, Becky Lynch will probably show up there. We got the Intercontinental title match, Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush versus Finn Balor.
Handicap for the title.
Yeah.
Brutal.
What?
Don't want handicap.
Would you sign that contract if you're Bobby Lashley? Like, would you say, yeah, I'll let Lio Rush be my second? Like, that's a hindrance, right?
Is this a traditional handicap match where they both can be in the rear, or they have to tag each other?
I think they have to
They
tag.
have to tag in?
Yeah.
Because a true 2-on-1, kind of thing.
Yeah, a true 2-on-1 would obviously, you would want the speed and the, strength, but
Yeah, I imagine it's going to be a situation.
no, but this is how they've done it. They've always done these 2-on-1s, and, one guy, the weaker guy gets caught in the ring and he can't make the hot tag, and then Finn Balor will win the Intercontinental title, which I'm not upset about. I like Finn Balor.
Especially where like Bobby Lashley's kind of dominating a bit, and then Lio Rush tags in. Bobby Lashley's kind of like, no.
So you think could this be a breakup, a lead to a breakup for Lio Rush and Bobby Lashley?
Yeah, kind of do it.
Plant the seeds and do it at like a WrestleMania, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's not... not a Lashley Rush match.
Feud, but
No. But like a little breakup angle where he maybe Lashley loses a title or loses a match at WrestleMania and then he turns on Rush and picks him up and slams him once, like that'll be good enough. We got...
less Bobby Lashley, better.
Yes. Bobby Lashley, he's nice to look at, I guess. He's definitely freaky to look at, but not much of a worker anymore. There's a Braun Strowman versus Baron Corbin no disqualification match. Why do these keep happening?
There was a point where I actually kind of turned the corner on Baron Corbin where I thought, maybe he got something. And when he was on SmackDown... It's
when they gave him that new theme song, right?
Yeah.
I love that song.
He kind of like, man, he's moving around, man. Big dude, he's got some athleticism. He was kind of like the big guy heel that was going against Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles on SmackDown. Like this.
But he was also balding.
Well, what can you do there? But, he was kind of looking like, okay, this guy can be something. And then they moved him to Raw, and then they put him in the GM room, and they just destroyed him.
Yeah, he's got the bad kind of heat.
Let's go away.
Yeah, this match needs to be quick. Strowman needs to kill him. It's no DQ, so I assume, that helps Strowman. Strowman's not the best on a traditional one-on-one, but no DQ will help. He can smash him. He can put him through tables. Maybe this leads to an injury angle for Baron Corbin and keeps him out for a little bit. But
match on the main.
I don't know. No, it's on the main card. Yeah, it's
the one I'm looking at. It doesn't have it separated. It's got its last match.
Yeah, I think the only pre-show match we're getting. So, are we both picking Braun Strowman for that one?
I'm picking Braun Strowman. The only thing I could see is maybe Spears, and it sets up a feud with Strowman. But
yeah,
he loses in that way. But
maybe
I don't think it's gonna happen. I think Strowman's just gonna kill him.
Yeah, the only pre-show match is the Cruiserweight title match, which is I hate that they do this. The Cruiserweight title match, I routinely give 3.5 stars and above, which means it's good. Buddy Murphy versus Akira Tozawa. Buddy Murphy's probably going to retain. It's a pre-show match. These things don't usually change unless it's like a big pay-per-view. There's not much to say that I haven't already written, but I'll reiterate it. The Cruiserweights are amazing. They're smaller guys that can do a bunch of flips. What's not fun about that? Buddy Murphy's been a great champion. Before that, Cedric Alexander. The only bad Cruiserweight run that I've seen was Enzo Amore's. and we all know how that ended. He was in that child sexting scandal that I guess turned out to be not real. But the cruiserweights get buried. It's kind of a purgatory. 205 Live is purgatory. They like to joke for wrestlers that come up from NXT, but if they would showcase these guys, I mean, Buddy Murphy, Akira Tozawa is probably going to be a good match.
It might end up being the best match on the card.
I mean, the Elimination Chamber match will probably be pretty good. The championship one.
Yeah, they should be pretty good. I mean, this match got a chance, though.
But yeah, routinely the Cruiserweight match is one of the top 3 matches on the show, you know. I'd like to see how other people feel about that. I mean, I kind of just preach it. But I think most people agree. The Cruiserweights are fun to watch. So, I'm taking Buddy Murphy to retain. What about you?
I'm never betting against Buddy Murphy.
Dan's last name is Murphy. I don't know if I mentioned
I
that.
think we established it. Sure.
Yeah, well, Dan's last name is Murphy. We've established it now twice in the last minute. Double or Nothing show in Las Vegas, May 25th? 26th?
25th?
I think it's the 25th. 25th at the MGM in Las Vegas. Double or Nothing tickets went on sale. There was a pre-sale over the weekend, and then when it went online, it sold out within 4 minutes. What does that mean for AEW?
I think it's bigger than people are anticipating. And just to kind of clarify, they gave a pre-code out. You could sign up throughout the weekend. This was after their little rally or whatever they had in Las Vegas. I think that was the Thursday, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then going into the weekend, you could sign up for a pre-code. And then that Monday, I think it was like Monday at 10 a.m., you could buy tickets through the pre-code. And that sold, the tickets that they had allotted, which were the majority of them, sold out in 3 minutes. So then there's a certain rules or laws that you have to sell a certain amount of tickets to the public. You can't sell the entire allotment of tickets through pre-sales. So they saved, I think, maybe 400 or 500 tickets to sell to the public, and those sold in 4 minutes. So legitimately, if you add it up together, it's really probably 34 minutes that it sold in. But it's, I mean, you're just, semantics at that point. Either way, it sold out in a crazy amount of time. The fact that 34 minutes is incredible for a show that's not WWE related.
Yeah,
14,000 seats.
It was actually 11,600. Cody.
11,600?
Yeah, Cody at least said earlier this month that it was going to be 11.6, and I know the record for a wrestling show in the MGM is around 12,000. So I'm sure whatever number they worked out with excess, I don't know, reserve tickets, whatever, maybe they'll release a couple more. They're definitely going to break that record because that's the plan. They don't want to, be second, I think. So, but they definitely sold that out. And it's kind of surprising to me that they ran only a 1,200 seat building because they sold out All In, the Chicago show, last year over Labor Day weekend.
Well, the plan was to go to T-Mobile Arena, the arena that Vegas Knights play.
Yeah.
And the plan was to go to that arena, which I think would have been closer to the 20,000. But they were worried that if the Knights were in the playoffs, there was a chance that the Knights could have a home game on that date. And if that happens, the Knights obviously get.
Yeah, if the Las Vegas Golden Knights had done really, really well and made it to the playoffs, there was a chance, but it was a small chance, and I think that they should have taken the gamble.
Because if they until you get right up to a week or two before, and then you're scrambling.
Yeah, that's what happened with that UFC show a couple weeks back where they moved it right for that John Jones.
Well, that was a whole nother.
I mean, it's a little different, but when you have to move venues and
it's rough on everybody.
Yeah, it's not going to go well. So I think you're right. I think they would have had enough time to correct it, and I think they should have ran it somewhere. Maybe Las Vegas wasn't the place they needed to run it, Why there?
Yeah, but I mean, they couldn't have known that it was going to sell that quickly either. I mean, maybe they thought, but...
I don't know. Matt thought last time that it was going to sell out in like 10 minutes, and it did. He was the only one who was like, yep, it should have sold out immediately. So I think they should have been a little cocky this time and maybe plan for that.
I think they will be then. next time.
Well, that begs the question. I mean, they've said that their next show is going to be the Jacksonville show, where they. I mean, I don't know. I know you don't know much about Jacksonville. I'm from Florida. Where do they run that? You think they run it at TIA, Everbank Stadium, or whatever it is, the Jaguar Stadium?
I mean, that would be extremely ambitious, and they better have a huge card for that.
I would go.
But, I mean, I would think whatever the basketball arena is, where would they can get 20,000? Like, where you can get 20,000, I think that's the next show.
Jacksonville just seems like not a great place for wrestling, but I guess it is. I mean, Florida itself is a pretty good place for wrestling. You can drive up and down the state and find it just about in every county, but Jacksonville, I don't know, 20,000 in Jacksonville, that seems like a lot to ask for. Who knows? Maybe they'll just run like a TV taping there, you know? Smaller crowd and then do a big show, but it'll be interesting. I mean, they're definitely, 4 minutes is quick, so 30 minutes is also quick.
A lot of people there's people that have pre-codes who couldn't get tickets.
Yeah, but people got stuck in waiting rooms, and I have a couple buddies who got tickets and stuff, and that's, but didn't one of our writers, Dustin, didn't he get tickets?
Dustin got a ticket. I think he got his through StarCast, because he went to the StarCast, the first one, and all in.
Yeah.
So it's a couple in where he got special package that he got.
Yeah, and you and I were talking about this. Did you know Conrad, the guy who does StarCast, he's married to Ric Flair's daughter?
Yeah, I had no idea. I was listening to The Observer this morning. It was the episode and they were just kind of joking about it. And what? Really? I had no idea.
Yeah, I saw it on Twitter, and I was kind of like, huh. I mean, good for Conrad, and I'm sure, that's all fine, but like, what you're a mortgage guy, and all of a sudden you're Ric Flair's son-in-law. That's got to be quite the come-up, hosting StarCast. And
he's a name, big name.
Oh yeah, I mean everyone knows him, right? Or at least the hardcores know him. Speaking of StarCast, The Undertaker is going to be there.
The Undertaker's going to be there, and Ric Flair's going to be. And I don't know if you heard the story, but they didn't announce that Ric Flair was going to be at StarCast until after the segment aired on Raw with Charlotte.
I heard about that. Yeah, they were afraid that they could have pulled her.
Yeah, which I mean they still could do.
Yeah, I mean I think that's kind of theatrics. I don't think they're going to pull her. It did kind of back WWE in the corner. They have to kind of go with Charlotte. But you're right. Plans change all the time. They can take out whoever they want. They could say, fine, we'll give you Becky and Ronda. And everyone would be okay with it. So, kind of strategic, but I still think The Undertaker's more shocking than Ric Flair. Because Ric is crazy and will do whatever he wants. Undertaker has been the staple of, the WWE brand for decades. So, to see him kind of go directly to the enemy.
Well, I mean, the StarCast isn't directly.
Well, it's associated with AEW, isn't it? Like they run their events at the same time. I mean, it's hard not to put the puzzle pieces together for your Vince McMahon.
But I don't think it's not like AEW is putting on StarCast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're not hosting it and things like that, but. I guess you're right. It's definitely not like access to WrestleMania weekend. Yeah. Those are different things. But
it kind of is. I mean, I get what you're saying. I can't imagine Vince is thrilled about it.
Yeah, he's got to be having a heart attack, right?
Yeah,
he's losing his top guys.
Well, I mean, he's not losing.
Yeah, but I mean, in a sense, but
like, why he's doing? Like, what's the point?
Well, money, right? That's
and then what you got to imagine he's made a crap ton of money over his 30-year plus career. Like, what is he doing these things? Like, why did he come back to wrestling in general? Like, he had the whole retirement segment, the match that you watched.
Yeah. I haven't seen anything great since that. Yeah, so I don't know why he came back. What did he burn through his money? I mean, like, He's what, married to Michelle McCool? Is she like really living the high life? Like, can't really understand.
That makes sense. And like Darkest is the thing for like a Bret Hart. Hart's going.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the type of guy you would expect that.
Yeah, I'd expect a Bret Hart. You know, he's had his relations with WWE and he's had his shakiness with them too. So that kind of makes sense. But just for someone like Undertaker to be such a, you know, like he's on Mount Rushmore of WWE, isn't he? Like,
yeah, oh for sure.
So, I just to see him kind of even be associated with a, you know, even be in the same breath as a different promotion is kind of shocking. He took all the, you know, he has a Twitter. I don't know if you knew that, but he took.
Undertaker does?
Yeah. It like popped up like a month or two ago. I think it's been a thing, but it wasn't used and it was activated. But it wiped all the WWE stuff out of his bio and stuff. And now it just says like bookings and it has his email. And he tweeted something the other morning that said like big news coming. So I kind of knew this star casting was on the way. I just didn't think he'd be taking a booking with Starcast or AEW or something like that so quickly.
It's hard. I mean, could you imagine the Undertaker popped up on AEW? Like he couldn't even be the Undertaker though. Like that's the thing. Like,
yeah, I mean they own the rights to it. I mean, they could. It's probably a leverage play. WWE. I mean, Brock Lesnar does this all the time with UFC. You know, I'm gonna leave. I'm not gonna come back, and then Vince is like, "I'll give you all the money in the world." So it could be just one of those. You know, Vince could say, "Hey, we want you to have a match at WrestleMania," and they're having the Saudi show in May in a couple months. Yeah, so I'm sure Taker will be there because the Prince.
Wrestlers. He wants to see Yokozuna.
Yeah, the Yokozuna is going to be a tough one to get. He wanted to see Ultimate Warrior too. I don't know.
I don't even want to touch that subject.
Yeah, we'll get to. We're going to stay away from the Saudi Arabia stuff until May because, that is a whole nother can of worms in itself. But I think that's all we have for today. Dan, you want to get your plugs out there?
Oh, yeah. You can follow main site account at Mich Sports ENT. That's MICH Sports ENT. That's our main account for everything, anything that comes out through Michigan Sports Entertainment. See through that Twitter page. You can also follow us on Facebook, Michigan Sports Entertainment. Those are our two big things. You can follow me personally. I don't tweet a lot on my personal account. I usually just kind of tweet the accounts, but MSE_Dan Murphy. And that's about it for my plugs.
Yep, we have our wrestling. We have a Twitter account for our wrestling section. I do a lot of tweeting on that. Dan does some, I think. Oh, see,
I got like 12 different Twitter pages.
Yeah, Dan's monitoring too many pages, but I do a lot of tweeting. I like to interact with people. So if you have questions, things you want to hear talked about on the show, feel free to reach out. I believe it's at MSE Pro Wrestling, isn't it? Yep, so at MSE Pro Wrestling, make sure you follow us, retweet us. We'll be putting this podcast, including a lot of our other writings, recaps, columns, things like that. You can follow me personally at David Rosenberg. That's Rosenberg with an E and then 2 G's because someone took the original handle, and I'm upset about that. I talk about wrestling on there a little bit. Not as much as I do on the wrestling Twitter, but I'm always down to argue as well as talk about music, politics, pretty much anything. You can catch me there, and I think that's all we got for you to do, so we'll talk to you again.
Goodbye, and good night, bad.